Welcome back to Investing Talk podcast.
Good to be here.
Today we're doing a deep dive into Atomera. They're focused on semiconductor materials, technology licensing.
That's right. And we've got quite a bit to look at: press releases on partnerships, some financial data, patents.
Exactly. So our mission here is to sift through all that, pull out the key insights, and really help you understand what's going on with Atomera right now.
Let's get started. One of the first things you notice is their core technology, Mears silicon technology, MST.
Right, MST. What is that exactly? Why should we care?
Well, the sources describe it as a, quantum engineered advanced material. Basically, it's aimed at making semiconductor transistors perform better and use less power.
Okay, better performance, less power. That's always the goal in chips. What's special about how they do it?
Well, what seems really interesting is the implementation. The materials highlight that MST can actually be added using existing semiconductor manufacturing equipment.
Ah, so fabs don't need a whole new set of tools.
That seems to be the idea. They can use their current, very expensive infrastructure. And it's also presented as complementary. It works with other nanoscaling technologies. It's not an either.
So it tackles some of those tricky physics problems as transistors get incredibly small.
Precisely. They call it a solution for difficult challenges. Think of it as maybe a foundational layer that boosts things without a massive process change.
Okay, that's a pretty significant claim. How are they actually trying to get this out there? The sources mentioned some recent collaborations.
Yes, a key one was announced back in April 2025, a strategic marketing agreement with a major player in chip fabrication equipment, a global leader.
Working with an equipment company seems vital. Getting the tech onto the machines people use. What's the goal there?
It's about accelerating MST adoption, specifically targeting next-gen stuff like AI, 5G, advanced electronics.
So they're working together on the integration.
Right, joint development, perfecting how MST works on this partner's machines. And both companies are putting resources into it.
And the benefit for the chip makers, the customers, faster access.
That's the promise. More mature, more targeted solutions, smoother integration into advanced production lines. The sources cite benefits like better yields, smaller chips, less power needed, maybe even lower costs.
Helping them get better products out faster.
Exactly. Atomera's CEO, Scott Bibeau, was quoted. He said it leverages the partner's sales force and, their relationships to speed things up.
You get it into production quicker.
He called it a win-win-win. MST drives demand for the partner's tools too, apparently.
Makes sense. And there was an analyst quote too, Jim McGregor.
Yes, from Taria's research. He stressed how important these kinds of collaborations are for innovation, especially with AI moving so fast.
And he saw MST on leading equipment as a way to get more efficient chips with minimal risk.
Correct. And he specifically pointed to the potential benefits for the next big transistor shift gate all around, things like ribbon FET and nanosheets, so very relevant for cutting-edge designs.
Interesting. Okay. Besides that commercial equipment partnership, there was another collaboration mentioned with Sandia National Labs. That sounds different.
It is. That was announced October 2024. It's with their Center for Integrated Nanotechnologies, CINT. That's a Department of Energy Research Center.
The focus there is different.
Completely. It's about a very specific materials problem, growing gallium nitride GaN films on top of silicon.
GaN on silicon. I know that's been a challenge. Why is it so hard?
Well, GaN itself is great for high power, high frequency, but you can't easily make big, cheap GaN wafers, so people try to grow it on other things, like silicon. Silicon wafers are big, cheap, fit into standard manufacturing.
Right.
But growing thick GaN layers on silicon creates a ton of stress. The wafers warp, they crack. This limits how thick you can make the GaN, which limits the voltage it can handle, usually stuck around 650 volts commercially.
And MST might help how?
The idea is that MST can somehow relieve that stress during the growth process, improve the quality of the GaN layer grown on the silicon.
Okay, so if that works, it could mean much better GaN performance, but on cheap silicon wafers.
That's the potential. Big benefits for power electronics, maybe RF devices, even micro-LEDs, speed, efficiency, cost savings.
And the CINT director, Jeffrey Nelson, seemed optimistic.
He called MST a tremendous opportunity for GaN on SI manufacturing and noted they can use CINT's tools and expertise to test it quickly.
And Atomera's VP, Sean Thomas, basically said manufacturing limits are holding back GaN adoption now.
Right. So this Sandia project is about proving the benefits mechanically and electrically by actually making and testing GaN on silicon devices using MST, real data.
Got it. So these partnerships show the technical validation, the commercial push.
Hmm.
Let's switch to the financials. We have that May 2025 due diligence info and Q1 results.
Okay, and first thing to remember here is the business model. Atomera licenses tech. They don't sell chips directly. Revenue comes from licensing deals.
And that definitely shows up in the numbers.
It does. Q1 2025 revenue was tiny, 4,000. And Q2 guidance is also minimal, 0 to maybe $50,000. Historically, looking back, very little or no real revenue. They're still pre-revenue, practically speaking.
So no profits then.
Correct. Q1 2025 net loss was $5.2 million, about 0.7 cents per share. That loss was actually slightly smaller than Q1 the year before, but the EPS number missed analyst forecasts, according to the due diligence report. The pattern is consistent losses while they invest.
Which means standard metrics like PE ratio, they don't apply.
Right, earnings are negative. The report mentioned peers might trade at 15x PE or higher, but for Atomera, you have to look at other things. Cash burn, cash position, are they hitting milestones?
Okay, speaking of cash, how much do they have end of Q1?
$24.1 million. That's cash equivalents, short-term investments, down from about $26.8 million at the end of 2024.
So they used about $2.7 million in the quarter.
Well, the cash used in operating activities was reported as $4.8 million in Q1 2025. That's higher than the $4.1 million used in Q1 2024. So the burn rate increased a bit year over year for operations.
Got it. Free cash flow is obviously negative then. What about debt?
The sources say they have more cash than debt. Doesn't give a specific ratio, but sounds like very low debt, maybe net cash positive.
And shares outstanding.
30.7 million as of March 31st, 2025.
Okay, so financially, it's exactly what you'd expect for a tech company at this stage. Investing heavily, burning cash, aiming for future licensing revenue based on their intellectual property.
Absolutely. The patents are the foundation. That's what they license access to the patents and the know-how to actually use MST.
And the abstract suggests that IP portfolio is pretty broad.
It looks that way. Issued U.S. patents, foreign ones, patents pending. The source doesn't give a number, but the types of applications covered seem really extensive. That's crucial for a licensing play.
Covers different transistors, CMOS image sensors, DRAM, FinFETs, even older BJTs.
Yes, and it's not just silicon logic and memory. There are patents related to optical devices, waveguides, things like varactors, too.
But a lot of it seems focused on how you make things with MST, the manufacturing methods.
That's a really important point. Patents cover things like lattice matching, dealing with interfaces, using different substrates like SOI, reducing resistance, controlling dopants, improving uniformity, reducing leakage, even MEMS applications.
That variety suggests they've really explored where MST might fit across the semiconductor world.
It certainly seems that way.
So let's tie this together. What does all this mean for you, the listener?
Well, it means you're looking at a company trying to tackle some really fundamental challenges in making chips. MST is positioned as a core materials technology innovation.
Understanding the tech itself is one piece, but seeing where it could apply is another. Advanced AI chips, 5G, but also maybe power electronics with that JN on silicon work.
And remembering the business model. It's not about selling products today. It's about licensing that core IP for others to use in their products tomorrow.
Which explains the financials, right? Low revenue, the cash burn. It's the investment phase. Building the tech, validating it, forging those partnerships like with the equipment maker and Sandia.
Those partnerships are the tangible steps you look for, signs of progress towards eventually generating that licensing revenue, even if it's not showing up on the income statement yet.
Okay, so we've walked through Atomera using the source materials, the MST technology, those key partnerships, the early 2025 financial snapshot, and the breadth of their IP.
It paints a picture, definitely. A company working on potentially very disruptive materials science. If MST gets widely adopted, it could be significant.
Which leaves us with, I think, a pretty interesting question to ponder. How fast can a technology like this, a foundational one like MST, actually move from the lab and these kinds of partnerships into widespread use?
Yeah.
Especially with the industry pushing hard towards new designs like gate-all-around and materials like GaN. How quickly can it translate to real revenue?
That's the key question for any company like this. Timing is everything.
Absolutely. Well, we hope this deep dive has given you some valuable perspective.
Don't forget to subscribe, like, and comment. Let us know what you think.
And join us next time for another deep dive here on Investing Talk Podcast.